So first of all, a little about knowledge libraries. A knowledge library is a document containing information that is to be shared with all users. As a knowledge library, this information can be made available to users so they can automatically update active documents within the organization's latest knowledge, whether that be a template or a client file that was created from that template. Caseview knowledge libraries allow for the creation of content as well as storage in a central location where it may be linked into various client files. Library content can be anything from a company logo to a full set of financial statements. For example, a knowledge library could be built to contain the various notes the firm regularly uses. Staff can then pick and choose the notes that should be added to the statements and link them in rather than having to type them in manually each time. The advantages of using Caseview knowledge libraries include the content only needs to be built once or customized once to make it available firm-wide. Changes to content, such as the rewording of a note, can be made in one central location. Documents which link to the content need only to update their links to integrate the changes. Content linked from a library is consistent from file to file. This means that once your library content is free of typos, all of your content can be free of the typos or style or grammatical errors that may appear when staff attempt to enter the content manually. Generally, staff do not need extensive Caseview knowledge to prepare statements when you're using knowledge library links. Now, I also want to talk a little bit about the knowledge library versus templates. Template client files, template documents, and the knowledge library share a common purpose, which is to have content stored in a central location to be shared in other files. Knowledge libraries are simply focused on a smaller scale than template files and documents, storing instead the individual components that are used to create a document, such as a variety of headers or a balance sheet or any other information that you can pull into a specific report you're building. The main difference in the way these various components function, however, is in future updates. A client file or document based off a template is a standalone copy of that template. Should the template be modified in the future, the existing client file will not see those changes unless it is updated manually as well, typically through a copy components grabbing that document. However, knowledge library content is brought into a Caseview document through a link that remains in place. At any point, staff can have Caseview update the links in the document to ensure their content matches what is in the library. Caseview can even compare the updated content in the library to modified content in the document and allow users to blend library changes with specific customization already performed in the document. The best way to do all of this, of course, is to create the knowledge library links in your template content so that when you create a new client file, that new client file will have those links pointing back to the original knowledge library. So let's get started. Now, I've taken the liberty of opening a Caseview file, and I'm just going to open that up right here. And this file contains a financial statement that I created and would like to use as a base for my knowledge library. Now, in order to do this, there are a couple items I need to make that happen. Number one is content, and fortunately, if I scroll through here, you can see that I do have content in this document, which is great. Number two is labeled sections, and by placing section markers around content that can be used in other files and labeling the section in a template document or a client document that was created from the template, I have the ability to point to another Caseview document's labeled section to pull the content into the current Caseview document in the desired position. So over here in the style window, we can see a number of different sections, and if I hover over top of the larger section, we can see that it is labeled title page. So I happen to have sections around the majority of content in this document, and they are labeled. So to demonstrate, I'm going to right-click and select Modify on the title page section marker. Now, clicking on the Label tab, we can see that this section has been labeled title page. Now, while we're here, let's have a quick look at some of the properties that we see. So in the section Label field, we enter a brief description to be used in the comparison revision. And in the section Display Label, if desired, we type in a description to be used in place of the section label in the form mode or in bookmark lists. This function is useful for creating section labels that serve a functional purpose in design mode and a more intuitive or descriptive section display label for areas seen by restricted users. The Include in Bookmarks option may be selected to add the section label to the go-to bookmark list automatically. And here's a quick tip. You can also jump to a labeled section by using the Go to Bookmark command found under Edit Go to Bookmark or by pressing the F5 key in Case View. The description field provides space to enter an optional description of the section. Then we come down to the Knowledge Library entry, which should be selected for any sections that are Knowledge Library entries. The Include in Section Comparison option may be selected to include the current section in comparison revision when it's being compared. If that's not checked, that section will not be included when you're comparing it to another document or to a source document. The Apply Styles After Knowledge Library Update option may be selected to apply the document style properties to the section after updating, and by selecting to apply styles after an update, during a comparison, working papers will not take the paragraph formatting into consideration. The Allow Paragraph Modifiable in Form Mode to be Reverted option may be used so input paragraphs that have been inserted from the Knowledge Library and modified in Form Mode may revert to their original state as needed using an option in the right-click menu in Form Mode called Restore Paragraph from Knowledge Library. A vertical red line to the left of the paragraph indicates it no longer matches its source content in the Knowledge Library, and the context menu option should be available. This red indicator line may be hidden by selecting View Preferences in Form Mode and enabling the option titled Hide Modify Paragraph Indicator. For applicable diagnostics, any diagnostics created under Tools, Diagnostics, and Case View that are appropriate to the current section can be selected. This will ensure those diagnostics are brought into your document along with the section indicated. Similarly, for applicable rounding relations, selecting any rounding relation to be updated from the Knowledge Library during a Knowledge Library update will make it available. Names displayed here represent the labels assigned to the rounding relation under Tools Rounding, or if the rounding relation is unlabeled, the cell number for the rounding relation. During the update, rounding relations selected here are replaced by the rounding relations with identical labels in the Knowledge Library section. And rounding relations that are not selected do not get replaced by rounding relations with identical labels in the Knowledge Library. Any new labeled rounding relations not listed in the dialog are added. And another tip, we recommend using labels for all rounding relations. With a label attached, any changes to the rounding relation, such as renumbering a cell, will still update correctly during Knowledge Library updates. I'm just going to click OK here, and I want to create a section of our own on the balance sheet. Now as I scroll down, I want to point out a cell TOC A4. That's going to toggle the balance sheet on and off, and you'll see the reason I'm telling you that in a moment. So at the moment I do not have a section around the entire balance sheet. I'm going to click at the beginning of the balance sheet, scroll down, and at the very end of the balance sheet I will click to select, shift-click, pardon me, to select the entire balance sheet. At this point I'm going to format the section, and on the Section tab I want to add the skip and hide conditions I'm going to need that's going to tie into the logic from my table of contents selections. So it was TOC.A4, and I want that to be equal to 0 for the section to skip and for the section to hide. Now with the logic built in, I'm going to move right on to our label. Now the label is going to be balance sheet. I like to keep it simple and descriptive. And while I'm here, I'm also going to throw in a section label, display label, and I'm going to make that balance sheet as well. Now, because it is a calculation field, I do need the quotes here. And I do want to include this in the list of bookmarks. I'm going to skip the description field today and ensure that each Knowledge Library entry include in section comparison, apply styles after Knowledge Library update, and allow paragraphs modifiable in Form Mode to be reverted are all selected. Also, this is the balance sheet, and it appears that I have a couple rounding relations for the balance sheet. So I'm going to select the balance sheet current year and balance sheet prior year rounding relations as well. And once that is all set, I can click OK. So I've now created the section with the section label, which is the key item here, that is going to allow me to work it into my Knowledge Library. Now I want to take this label content and copy it into a new Knowledge Library document. So I'm just going to hit the Save button first of all to save my changes. And I'm going to select File and New Knowledge Library. Now a Knowledge Library document is a case view document. The extension is CVW. The difference is it's not stored necessarily within a client file, but any case view document could potentially become a knowledge library document. So I'm just going to arrange these side by side to make it a little bit easier. And in my original document, I'm going to select Edit, select All, and Edit Copy. And moving over to my new knowledge library document, I'll select Edit and Paste. So all of the content from the body of the document was pasted in at this point. Now at this point I want to save my knowledge library document, so I'm going to hit the Save button, and it's asking me if I want to make this knowledge library document part of a knowledge library index, which is a database that includes a listing of all knowledge library documents and all of their labeled sections. Now that's going to be beyond the scope of what we're doing today, so I'm going to click No and not worry about the knowledge library index. It's not a requirement, it's something that's just available. Then I can locate the folder that I put my knowledge library documents in, and it might be a network folder, it might be a local folder. Today I'm using a local folder under my training, and it's actually called Library, and I'm going to call this my KL for Knowledge Library, just to keep it nice and simple, and hit the Save button. Now I can still edit this document and save the changes whenever I need to update it. For example, my knowledge library document has not taken into consideration any of the headers, footers, carry forward text, autocopy text, or freeze pane information that is available under the Edit menu, and that is in the body of my other, or in the areas of my other document. All of these items need to be copied into the body of my knowledge library document and have an appropriate section label added. It's important to note that I did say the body of the document. We're not able to pull content from the headers, footers, carry forward text, autocopy text, or the freeze pane of a knowledge library document, but we can pull that information from the body and place it into the appropriate area in our template and or our client file document. Now, at this point, I'm going to show you an example of what I mean. So I'm going to close this new knowledge library document, and I have another knowledge library document that I've created previously open, so I'll just switch over to that. Now if I want to open an existing knowledge library document, I just go to the File menu, select Open Knowledge Library, and locate the directory where my library documents are, and then I can just open it up. And you'll notice that these are case view documents. They're just not associated with a specific client file. You cancel that. Note, any case view document that has not been compressed and has sections that are labeled can be used as a base for knowledge library content. This particular document has a freeze pane. We can see up at the top here, financial statements, headers, footers, and carry forward text sections already set up. And I'll just scroll through here down to the bottom where I have my headers and footers and whatnot so that you can see that information. Now, I've also used highlighted paragraphs to differentiate between the different sections in this document. Now you'll notice that my highlighted paragraphs are not included in my sections, but it does break it up so that we can easily see exactly what it is that I'm looking at, and I can make a determination as to exactly how I want to edit those items if necessary. Now, in my template, I want to create a financial statement from this knowledge library content. So all of this obviously has sections around it, and all of the sections are labeled. For example, there's my freeze pane. So I'm going to switch back from this to my template file, and I'm going to create a new document. So I can go, I'll just save this one. I'll go to File, New, and because I'm in case view, it's asking me what type of document. I'm just going to base it on system defaults and click OK. Now at this point I'm going to save my document as well so it's properly saved. And for my identifier, I'm going to call this Knowledge Library Link Financial Statements and Financial Statements. So at this point, I had content, I put labels around the sections that I want to pull from that content, I copied that into a new Knowledge Library document and saved it. Now I want to insert my Knowledge Library links to a new document in my table. So I'm going to start with the freeze pane. Let's move this out of the way over here. And View, freeze, edit, freeze. Now inside my freeze pane, I'm going to go to Insert and select Knowledge Library Link. Now the first thing we see is it's asking for a knowledge library file name. And this is a calculated field, so I can use a calculation to determine that. But today I'm just going to browse, and it happens that I've already got it pointed to my C Training Library folder. The file that I'm going to use is the one with the purple highlighted paragraphs that we just saw, the Caseware Advanced CVW. I'm going to click Open there, and we've got the path right there. Once I've got a path to a real Caseview file that has labeled sections, the section label drop-down is populated with the section labels from that file. And I mentioned this is the freeze. And then we just make our other selections that we want. Once we've got all of our selections set, I can click OK. And I can delete the extra paragraph up at the top. I now have a knowledge library link, and it may be difficult to see, but I'm just going to try and maximize that. That section is a knowledge library section. If we look really closely, we can see that it's green. That lets me know that I'm dealing with a knowledge library. And if I right-click and modify it, I have an extra section property called knowledge library link that has all that information that we just saw me setting up. And I'll click OK. Now, at this point, it becomes a little repetitive for the two headers and footers. So I'm going to quickly go ahead and add them in the same fashion. So I'm going to switch over to header 1 and insert my knowledge library link, browse out to that, and I'm just going to copy that to my clipboard to make it a little bit easier even. And there is header 1. And then I'll switch over to header 2. Same thing. Like I said, it does become a little bit repetitive at this point, but only for a couple more items. And then I'm going to show you something else that is going to make this even easier to deal with. So there's my header 1 and header 2. Now I want to deal with my footer 1. And normally I would be adding those other properties as I'm going through to create those headers and footers, but I'm just trying to keep this moving along as we're coming towards the end of time here. So there's footer 1, and finally footer 2. Now I'm pulling this from the body of my knowledge library document. So again, insert library. Now, for those of you that use the financials templates, we use libraries extensively in those templates, and you're probably aware that you don't have to go through this particular process that I've just gone through. That's because we've set up the template to accommodate you already in that area. Now I'm going to close the header here, and the next thing I want to do to make my life a little easier is I'm going to format the paragraph in the body of my document and add the tag insertion point. So I'll just go to Format, Paragraph, Tag, and call this insertion point. Now, this is a prelude to something I'm about to do, obviously. What I want to do is have an action to insert my sections right where this paragraph happens to be. So I need to go back to the freeze pane. Edit freeze will get me there, but the drop down on the toolbar will also get me into the freeze pane. And right here beside sort notes, I'm going to create a new cell. So I'll go Format Cell and call it Insert Knowledge Library Link. And I'm going to make this a button cell, so I'm just going to click on it and call the button Insert Sections. Now, to insert sections, I have to make this an event, so it'll actually do something when I click on it. First of all, I like to make them undoable always before I add any action, and the action that I'm going to use today is Insert Knowledge Library Link from List. Now, the file name is that same file that I've been using, so we can use the browse or the calculation editor to find that file, which happened to be under C, Training, in my case, Library, and I'll click OK. It's got the text in there for me, perfect. And for included sections, I'm going to say hide with the option to show. So if I've already got a section included, it will hide that section for me. I'm going to insert it at the insertion point tag. Coincidence that they're called insertion point, both left and right. I'm going to insert it before, not after. So I'm going to insert it above that insertion point. And as far as list for section goes, I'm not going to worry about that. And I'm not going to discard my links. And I like to have a hand on that, so it just changes the icon to let me know something's going to happen. With all that set, I can click OK, and I now have a button in my document which is going to allow me to insert those. Now, for safety purposes at this point, I'm going to copy this button back into my knowledge library, because if I do an update, I don't want to lose that button that I've just created. So I'll hit the save in my knowledge library to keep it there and come back here. In my main document, I'm going to go back to the form mode and click on Insert Sections. That gives me a list of all of the sections that are available from that particular document. So I want the title page, table of contents, I want the report and the balance sheet, statement of income and retained earnings, statement of retained earnings. Well, I'm bringing them both in, but the table of contents is going to allow me to choose which one I want. Statement of cash flow and notes for the financial statement. Now, because I'm bringing the entire notes in, it's going to bring all of the other ones in that are listed individually, so I'm not going to select those, and I'm not going to grab any headers or footers. With that, I simply click OK, and it builds a financial statement for me. A quick print preview of that statement will show me a nice, clean financial statement built from my knowledge library document with the headers and footers included. So let me close that. So I now have a financial statement linked to my knowledge library in my template. And any client file I create from this template will include the case view document that is linked back to the knowledge library. So if there are any changes to the knowledge library, I can compare my statement to the current knowledge library and see what has changed and determine if I need to update my client file. Of course, the template should be updated so any new client files are created with the most up-to-date information. Now, to demonstrate, I'm going to once again switch back to my knowledge library document. And I'm going to make a simple change to my title page from unaudited to audited. 3 letters, simple change, and I'll just hit the save button.